And we're rolling.
Hello, my name is Jackie Geringer McDermott, and we are recording live from the English Valley History Center in North English, Iowa. It is January 25th, 2025. This diary or journal was written by my great aunt, Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade, who is known as Libby Wade. She was my grandmother's aunt and the matriarch of our very large family. Libby lived a half a block east of Main Street in a little house on Oak Street in North English, Iowa, until near the end of her life in 1959. She was 71 years old in 1946. I don't remember her, but she knew me as a baby. Downtown North English was also the center of my life as I grew up. I would like to introduce you page by page to the cast of characters from North English, Iowa, and the surrounding English Valleys area. May 1st, 1946. Cold, cloudy, drizzling rain, a very disagreeable day. I finished ironing. I have a little fire in both my stoves. Mrs. Hinckley died. She was Myrtle Ferris's mother. According to the North English record, Myrtle Ferris was Lida Mae Douglas Hinckley. The Hinkleys lived in North English until 1919, where Wyatt Hinckley was associated with Standard Oil. Then they moved to Cedar Rapids. May 2nd, 1946. Russell went to Albia with lumber. It is still rainy. Rained all night. Light rain. It is still cold. Mary R. here in the PM. Wrote to Milan. Received a letter from Anna. They had hail on April 30th. Damaged tomatoes. Bus Halls have twins, a boy and a girl. Cassidy's have a boy, all born May 1st. Got a tank of gas. Hattie here in the evening. Maud was here a while. Mary Rugsager was her egg lady and neighborhood friend. She's the younger person in this picture. Mylan Cray was her grandson from Texas, who is in the service now that she writes to regularly. She also writes regularly to her daughter, Anna, who is married and lives in Texas, and they raise tomatoes. Cleo, or Bus Hall, and his wife, Sarah, or Sally Hohenschel Hall, have twin babies, a boy named Vance and a girl named Virginia, or Jenny. Vance commented last week that he listens to my broadcast now. I have also heard that his younger brother, John Hall, is a listener, too. And here's the birth announcement from when they were born. And actually, it says twins, Vance J. and Barbara K. So that's not what they named her. They named her Virginia. And here's their pictures when they graduated from high school. This is the Everyone at EV book. Vance and Virginia are on the top row on this. And the boy in the Cassidy family was not a boy, it was a girl. It was Rebecca Lynn Cassidy, the daughter of Walter and Ida Marie, we called her Marie, Wymore Cassidy, born May 2nd, 1946 in Williamsburg, Iowa. Becky was a 1964 graduate, also of English Valleys, and she's in the top row on this side of the pictures. Becky's married name was Becky Stanley, and she lived in Watchir. She passed away from cancer in 2011. The boy in the Cassidy family was Joel, or Ned Cassidy, born in 1941, and he was a 1959 graduate of English Valleys. Ned was a farmer and a substitute teacher and lived in Wausau, Illinois. Ned passed away in 2022. I've got a picture of Ned here too I want to show you while we're on the subject. He's in 59 and he's right in the middle, in the top row. And back to the diaries. Hattie Newberry Killian was Libby's 55-year-old neighbor and friend, and Maud Foster Claypool was the wife of Libby's nephew, Ray Claypool. May 3rd, 1946. Raining again today. Cold, too. Sent birthday cards to Jaunty and Otis. R.D. Gray died in the Cedar Rapids paper. Temperature at 8:30 p.m. was 48 degrees. Russell went to the show. Jonathan, or Jaunty, and Otis Claypool were Libby's nephews, the sons of her brother Benton Claypool. R.D. Gray, who died in Cedar Rapids, was evidently somebody Libby knew. It sounds like Libby subscribes to the Cedar Rapids paper. Remember that Marlene Newberry is her paper girl. Libby can get her paper delivered out of Cedar Rapids in 1946. People around here do not have that luxury as of this month in 2025. You have to subscribe online to get every issue. I learned today you can still have them mailed, but the Sunday paper would have been a couple days late with the Monday holiday this week. Russell, this is a picture of Russell, is Libby's 38-year-old son who lives in the house with her. He was headed to the theater uptown to go to a movie. I was just recently looking at the 1940 census to try and figure out where everyone in the neighborhood lives. The census said that Russell was a truck driver at the lumber yard. It also said he earned $860 in 1940 and worked 60 hours per week. In 1940, he listed his rent as $12 per month, but he might have meant that that was a house payment. We know in 1946 he had a new car and that he paid off the house by that time because Libby said so in her earlier diary entries. It's hard to compare wages from the past to what it will buy in today's market. May 4th, 1946. Otis's birthday. Still cloudy and cold. Maud was here and brought a book from the library called Hawthorne House. Lena here had been to Cedar Rapids for Mrs. Hinckley's funeral. Brought gifts for the twins at Williamsburg. Blankets. Temperature at noon, 38 degrees. Otis Claypool was Libby's nephew. He's in this picture right here. He's the young guy right here. This is the family group shot. I'll probably be showing more of that in the future. It sounds like Libby takes advantage of the North English Library, checking out books. Her daughter-in-law, Lena, had gone to Williamsburg. Lena is the wife of second son, Warren or Mike Wade. It sounds like Vance and Virginia Hall will be getting blankets as gifts from the Wade family. Sunday, May 5th, 1946. Russell went fishing and mushroom hunting. No luck. Went to church. Warren was here. We went to see Mr. and Mrs. Cray in the p.m. Russell went to church in the evening, special services of the IOOF at the Christian Church. Libby attends the Methodist Church in North English, and Russell's talking about going fishing and mushroom hunting. People around here like those sort of delicacies. Mushrooms are a real treat in the springtime. Warren is her middle son. They went to Wellman to see Mr. and Mrs. Cray, who had just returned from Texas. They are the parents of Libby's son-in-law, Richard Cray, who has a farm in Texas with his wife, Libby's daughter, Anna. Libby's youngest son, Russell, is a member of the International Order of Odd Fellows, or IOOF Lodge, and they had a special meeting at the North English Christian Church, which is a block north of the Methodist Church. May 6, 1946. Jaunty's birthday, 53. Still cloudy and cold. Hattie here in the p.m. as she came from work. I went over to Verdi's a while. They gave me some winter onions. Jaunty is Libby's nephew. He's this guy in this picture on this side. And he's also in this other picture here with Libby in it. Libby's this one right here, and Jaunty is her nephew down here in the bottom. Jaunty is Libby's nephew, the son of her older brother, Benton Claypool. Hattie Newberry Killian was her 55-year-old neighbor and friend. Verdi Mahanna McKinstry was Libby's good friend as she was 73 years old. Her husband, Ambrose McKinstry, is 80 years old in 1946. Later in life, Verdi will live in the home of Hattie Killian as a boarder. Libby is always on the lookout for special foods, so I'm sure she appreciated the winter onions. May 7th, 1946. Cloudy early. Cleared off and I washed. Colder. Frost predicted for tonight. It was 36 degrees in some places in the state last night by radio. WSCS met with Mrs. McCurdy today. Libby waited to see if it rained before she washed clothes because those clothes would be hung out to dry on a line. Libby gets her news from the radio. WSCS is a church group. Libby does not say she went to the church women's gathering, as she does not always attend everything, but she usually knows what is going on around town. May 8th, 1946. Mother died on this date in 1912. This is President Truman's 62nd birthday. Germany surrendered a year ago today. Jenny, Belva, Frida, Hazel, and I went to Kyoto in the PM, visited Beth, and shopped a little while. Jenny bought some geraniums for me from Wayne. She said they were for Mother's Day. Libby's mother is Anne Mariah Hinkle Claypool. She's the older lady in this corner of the picture. And Anne Mariah was my great-great-grandmother. In 1946, Libby, in the center, and her sister-in-law, Minnie Claypool, up here, were the only ones left living of the original older people in the picture. Harry Truman was the President of the United States in 1946. Beth Mall Holmes was Libby's niece and the daughter of her sister, Sarah Myrtle Claypool Mall. Beth and her husband, Harold Holmes, lived in Kyoto. May 9th, 1946. I did some washing and ironing, set out cabbage plants. It rained a little. Had letters from Anna and Mylan. Libby has a vegetable garden. May 10th, 1946. Dark, cloudy, cold rains in the PM. Cold wave predicted. Snow at Sioux City and Council Bluffs. Temperature falling hourly. Russell is not feeling well. Stomach trouble again. Temperature down to 40 degrees in the evening. May 11th, 1946. Still colder. Was 28 degrees here at 7:30 a.m. Ice at 9 o'clock. Not much damage as far as we know. A cold wind from the north. Further, noon temperature was 20 degrees in some places. Wayne got Harold's sea bag. Harold, or Stub Wade, her grandson on the right here, had to go back to the West Coast for the Navy after spending 30 days at home. Now his duffel bag has been shipped home, so presumably he will be on his way home soon too. Mother's Day, May 12th, 1946. Another cold day. Wayne's and their children all here except Harold. He's not home yet. Warrens were here in the evening. Anna called from Texas. Received several nice gifts. A wonderful day for me, and I think they all enjoyed it too. Lila and Nellie were here with Hazel too. Wayne's family included Belva here and Don Yass, her husband, Walter, or Bud, and his wife Frida Wade, Evelyn and her husband Wayne Kurtz and their daughter Suzanne, and Hazel Cobb, who's obviously a little older, and her husband Glenn Cobb, and Harold was still gone to the Navy. Lila Cobb, or see, this is Warren's family here then next. This is Mike and Lena and their daughter Phyllis and the younger daughter Judy. Lila Cobb was Hazel's mother-in-law, and Nellie Cobb was originally a V&D. She was married to Glenn Cobb's brother Milo Cobb. And this is an old picture from the V&D original family, and Nellie's the one on this side. May 13th, 1946. I washed in the AM. Russell not very well. No breakfast and only ice cream for dinner. Bertha and the two little boys were here. Weather is still cold. A little rain in the PM. Received a gift from Anna. Neva Cray is in the hospital for an operation. Bertha Claypool Geringer is Libby's niece and the daughter of her brother Benton and my paternal grandmother. She's here in this picture. And the two little boys that showed up that day were Ronnie and Chuck, her youngest. Neva Cray is the sister-in-law of Libby's daughter in Texas, Anna Cray. Neva's name later in life was Neva Burdine, and she lived in a little green house on Bolin Avenue when I was a kid. May 14th, 1946, ironed in the morning. Russell was not able to go to work. Didn't eat anything all day. Went to the doctor in the evening. I went to lodge. The Williams group was here with the moon and 7 stars. Nice. Jenny brought my new dress. I wore it to lodge. Warmer, 55 attended. Maud was here, and Neva Cheney telephoned about Neva Cray. Neva Cheney was another woman from town who was concerned about Neva Cray was having an operation. Did you notice that Russell went to see Dr. L.A. Miller in the evening? Maybe old Doc invented urgent care. Seriously, Dr. Lawrence Miller, joined by his son, Dr. Larry Miller, provided excellent care to this community night and day for many, many years. Each of them will be the subject of a spotlight story in my broadcast this spring. May 15th, 1946. I worked in the garden a while. Russell is still sick. Some better, I think. Ralph Bursler is here to do some spading for me. Mr. Quirrell was killed and a young man, Core, badly injured at Williamsburg. Luella Aldrich has a new baby. Ralph Bursler was a high school junior that Libby was going to help her with her garden and yard work. He was in the class of 1947. Carl Quirrell, age 56, was killed, and Dean Core, age 21, was badly injured in a vehicle accident at Williamsburg when they struck a parked semi-flatbed. Dean Core was the brother of my Aunt Betty Geringer, so he was an uncle of Nancy Buck and Tammy Geringer. He had previously been wounded in the European theater of war and spent a year in an overseas hospital. He bounced back quickly from his injuries and was married that fall. The new baby born to Marvin and Luella Aldridge was Darrell Aldridge, also a graduate of EVHS. And he's in 1964 also. And I've lost my page, of course, because that's how I am. This would be a good time to plug this Everyone at EV book. These are going to be for sale as a fundraiser for Alumni Day here next fall, or next summer, excuse me. The day of the parade. We'll have a gathering there afterwards of everybody. We'll get the price for you soon. I asked this morning what the price is going to be, and he couldn't quote me a price yet because they don't put it together until the seniors graduate. Darrell Aldridge is in the middle of the top row on this in this book. That's the end of the diary portion of the program for this week. The first thing I wanted to show today was this picture from the History Center because I think it's unique because it shows several of the people we have talked about recently. And here's the picture right here. It was taken during the Centennial in 1954. The picture was taken at Brown's Cafe on the east side of Main Street. You will notice all the men have beards, but that was only because of the Centennial. The men are Edwin Frederick. He was the father of my classmate Brenda Frederick Peppers and her brothers. Wayne Kurtz, who is married to Lib Wade's granddaughter, Evelyn Wade, and the father of our listeners, Suzanne and Kathy Kurtz. Leighton or Happy Claypool, the father of Winston, Leighton, Jean, Harold, Doris, and Lloyd Claypool, and the grandfather of my listeners, Mark and Mike Claypool, Tina and Tammy Claypool, and Linda Claypool Clark. This is Walter or Dusty Cheney. We just talked about Neva Cheney. That's another Cheney. Dusty was worked at the Home Lumber Company, and he was the father of Janet Wade from Keswick and Walt Dean Cheney, who was in James Moore's Rock and Flames band. Everett Johnston. Everett's right there. He was an area farmer and the father of Myrna Johnston and the grandfather of Rob Russell and his sisters. Jim Newman is right there. He was my high school, junior high bus driver and the father of Dixie Newman Knipfer and her siblings. Lowell Churchill, who had just sold Churchill's Cafe uptown in 1946 and lived across the street from Libby Wade on Oak Street. Lowell Churchill and Henrietta Whitmore Churchill were the parents of Joanne Churchill Harris. Ralph McCombs, he's right there. He was the grandfather of Carolyn Warner Elwood on the History Center board. And then Homer Kirkpatrick on this side. Homer ran Kirkpatrick Produce on Main Street and was the father of Marilyn Geringer, Larry Kirkpatrick, and Don Kirkpatrick. The little boy on the right, back here you can't hardly see him, that is Glenn Knipfer, who later married Dixie Newman, Jim Newman's daughter. Dave Jackson has written a book called Won't You Take Me to Hinkletown? The History of Hickory Ridge School in Hinkletown, Iowa. For those of you who do not know, Hinkletown is 6 miles east of North English and then south of the highway. Green Valley is north of the highway. Carl Hogendorn, the longtime editor of the North English Record, often consulted Lucy Hudson Whitmore for stories about the history of the area. In one of his Main Street Musings articles, Carl wrote, Hinkletown was a thriving village located just a few miles east of North English. Hinkletown had a great many businesses, a school, a church, 2 lodges, Masonic and Odd Fellows, a lumber yard, brick manufacturing works, and quite a large residential area. Lucy's granddaughter, Joanne Churchill Harris, who has since passed away, was able to unearth pictures and memories from a desk about her grandmother, Lucy Hudson Whitmore, that are included in the Hinkletown book. And that book is for sale here at the History Center if you're interested in a copy. Historians like Libby Wade and Lucy Whitmore gave us modern researchers a framework on which to build. Libby was from the Yankee Point and Carter area, and her husband's people were from Green Valley. Lucy Hudson Whitmore was from the pioneer town of Hinkletown, now a ghost town. These lines that Lucy Whitmore wrote were quoted by Dave Jackson in an article he wrote for the English Valley newspaper. It was called the English Valley Star newspaper in 2011. And here's a picture of Lucy and her husband, John Whitmore, up here in the corner. Lucy said, in those days, nature provided for us with a lavish land. The North English River was teeming with all kinds of fish. All kinds of wild fruit grew in abundance. Blackberries, raspberries, strawberries, crab apples, plums, grapes, nuts by the bushel, hickory nuts, hazelnuts, walnuts, butternuts. All we had to do was gather these, and when we wanted some honey, the men would go into the timber, find a hollow tree filled with honey, and bring it home by the gallon. The wild meats were quail, prairie chickens, wild ducks, geese, rabbits, and squirrels. Plenty of wood to keep us warm and cook our food. All that was required was the use of our muscles, no money. Here's a picture of Lucy's family. This is the Thomas Hudson family at their 50th wedding anniversary in 1919 in Hinkletown. And Lucy is in the top between her parents. Her parents were Thomas Fletcher Hudson and Henrietta Dizer Hudson. I also have a picture of Lucy on the porch at her house with her daughter Henrietta Churchill when she was little in the front here. And then there's another picture of Lucy when she was younger on this side right there. All these pictures are in the Hinkletown book if you want a better look at them. Lucy was born September 2nd, 1879 at Foote, Iowa in Fillmore Township, Iowa County, Iowa, the daughter of Thomas Hudson and Henrietta Dizer Hudson. She was married April 22nd, 1903 to John F. Whitmore. They engaged in farming, and John was also in business in North English. He passed away in 1950. The union was blessed with one daughter, Henrietta. Following the death of her husband, Lucy made her home with her son-in-law and daughter, Henrietta and Lowell Churchill. She was the last surviving member of the Thomas Hudson family, and she passed away in 1971. She was survived by her daughter Henrietta, one granddaughter Joanne, Mrs. Larry Harris, and 4 grandchildren, John, Linda, Nancy, and Mary Harris. Lucy was a wonderful friend and neighbor, ever willing to help those in need. She was an authority on the early history of Foote and Green Valley and had shared her knowledge countless times with school students and historians. She had the ability to write good poetry and had written hundreds of poems about people, places, and things, which are treasured by many persons who have them. Carl Hogendorn wrote about Lucy at the time of her passing. We are grateful for all the help Lucy gave us over the years. She wrote many obituaries for us, being so well acquainted with the lives of many early residents. She also furnished us with much historical data of the area. It is thought Lucy wrote about 50 obituaries, and her obituaries are very special. For example, her father Thomas Hudson's obituary reads like this, and I would surmise that Lucy wrote it. Having lived to the ripe old age of 80 years, he has been granted the wonderful experience of seeing the bleak prairies and the wooded hills spring into modern advancement of civilization. Here is a paragraph from the obituary of her mother, Henrietta Dizer Hudson. Her friends bereft can be numbered by the score, as she had a kind word for everyone, and her hands in her home were always ready to be offered in the service of others. She will be greatly missed by these friends, by relatives and children, but most of all by her aged companion, her spouse, Thomas Fletcher Hudson. The poem that Lucy wrote about Hinkletown ends like this. Old age is upon us, our songs have been sung, but we can keep on dreaming of the days when we were young. When death angels draws the curtain down with the passing of the years and we enter that home above, when there's no more sorrow or tears, perhaps the Heavenly Father will let us have a share and we can have a Hinkletown when we meet again up there. Correspondence, etc. for January 18th, 2025. Dan Best mentioned in a reminiscence about Jerry Fobert after I mentioned Jerry in last week's broadcast. He said Jerry showed him a huge buck deer that he had hunted one time, and Jerry was just so proud that he had bagged that animal. Dave Jackson also shared that he used to curse Jerry because he drove so slow on the way home into town on the highway, but Dave has since learned that there are deer on these roads, so driving slow is smart.
Yeah, right.
Vance Hall writes, thanks, Jackie, for the great presentations on North English. I have to admit I cruised past your presentations before today. I'm not sure why I decided to listen to today's video, but I was taken back many years ago. So many names that brought back fond memories from my childhood. The diary portion stopped on April 29th, 1946, which was 3 days before Jenny and I were born. Keep up your broadcast. By the way, your cousin Buck and I were classmates and friends. I heard from Vera Dye, who says she remembers that the Will and Ellis Hoff house, when it was still standing up on Summit Street, it was a really small house. Jackie Claypool Pruitt from Mountain Home, Arkansas said, I really enjoyed your video. Thanks so much for sharing. A cousin on my mom's side actually forwarded it to me. I'm John or Jack Claypool's daughter, so I guess we're related. Carolyn Claypool Atwood of Jensen Beach, Florida writes, great job, Jackie. Always enjoy the broadcast and hearing the history of our community. Doug is an avid sports fan and liked the portion about Mace Brown and then researched more information. Looking forward to the next presentation. I need to say right now that my next program's featured person will be, next week will be Carl Hogendorn. Also, people come up in the diaries such as Frida Davidson did last week, and I feel the need to do a story about that then. I will plan for more about Mace Brown the week after that, since he was probably the most famous North English athlete. Mark Claypool from Sigourney says, Jackie, each week you amaze me with your research and knowledge of the community. I have been to the History Center many times, but it just seems like I see something different every time that brings a special smile and a warm remembrance of days gone by. Jude Kerr-Kriebel says, thank you, Jackie, for the tour. There are lots of memories packed in there. Linda Holden Carter says, great job, Jackie. Vicki Orndorff Johnson writes, thank you for today's broadcast. I enjoyed the tour of the History Center. I was born in November of 1944, so it would have been my older sister, Lucille K. Orndorff, born in August 1943, and I, at Libby's party with my mother. Vicki also asked about the aerial photos of North English, and Scott Romine shared the link to those on Facebook. My dear friend Pam Kavanaugh Shield says, thank you, Jackie, for another informative broadcast. I really enjoyed the walkabout of the History Center. It seemed so big. I didn't realize the grocery store was that big. Seeing all the memorabilia brings back so many different pieces of my life growing up in North English. I look forward to going down memory lane with you each week. Glenn Davison writes, Jackie, I have enjoyed your broadcast very much. Nice job. Georgia Ackerman Gent writes, another trip down memory lane. I really appreciate what you're doing, Jackie. Frida Davison worked at Evans Photography when my dad did. So many fond memories of her through the years. Couldn't find a more kind soul and hard worker than her. We used to call her Fifi. I also wanted to mention that English Valley's graduates, there was 3 of the graduates that passed away recently. Richard or Dickie Joe Miller from the class of 1963. Rose Chittick Wilcox from the class of 1961. And Bonita Bursler from the class of 1982. You will remember that her brother Bob Bursler just passed away at New Year's Eve. If you follow the English Valley High School graduates page, you can find out more information. The history of the English Valley History Center. Dave Jackson and I sat down with the abstract of the History Center to learn more about the History Center to share with all of you. Originally, the History Center was part of a 500,000 acre land grant dated September 1841. On November 22nd, 1851, Lyman D. Little bought it for $1.25 per acre. Other owners were Abigail Hannah Vincent, Michael Vincent, Charles B. Leonard, and that's when it became known as Leonard's Addition. And then it was sold to William Glenn Claypool and his wife, Mary Wallace Claypool. The lot the History Center is built on is part of 3 lots that belong to William Glenn Claypool and family. The Claypools sold to E.L. Graham on December 1st, 1949. E.L. and Lorraine Graham sold to Eldon and Opal Bertram on May 31st, 1951. We know that Eldon and Opal built the grocery store called Eldon's Food Market. On December 29th, 1976, the store was sold to Herbert G. Meyer Jr., and he continued to operate as a grocery store. On January 29th, 1980, Eldon and Opal Bertram sold the building to Bob and Gloria Buckner, doing business as Bucky's Red and White, which was also a grocery store. After 15 years in business, they built a new store across the street. On September 25th, 1995, Scott and Linda Buckner took possession of the building, and the business they ran out of the building was called Valley Auto Supply, selling CarQuest products. Scott Buckner sold the building to Richard and Hilda Grimm on September 17, 2001. Jane and Alex Garcia rented the building for their business, Garcia Carpet, for a while. and then the Grimms sold it to David B. Jackson in 2007. Dave Jackson, assisted by Pat Newmiller, then remodeled the building into the English Valleys History Center. Next week, we will show you some pictures of the people who worked for the grocery business. We have set up a channel on YouTube where the podcast can be viewed, and that's easier than hunting on my Facebook for the broadcasts. So far, we've had over 500 views on YouTube. They are archived by date of broadcast. We invite you to subscribe, like, share, and tell your friends. Subscribing to YouTube is free, and there are no hidden obligations or anything like that. We will also continue to be on Facebook each week. Funding for the History Center comes from Iowa County 100 Plus Who Care and the Iowa County Community Foundation. However, we welcome your donations to keep the heat and lights on. Please send donations to the English Valleys History Center, P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa 52316. Scott and Bonnie Romine are working on a set of programs for 2025, and they will announce soon. Scott Romine has posted a schedule for the alumni reunion at the History Center during North English Fun Days on Saturday, July 26, 2025. There's a flyer on the EV Graduates page if you need more information. The parade's at 10:30. Starting at noon, snack and drinks will be available in the History Center, paid for by sales from the Everyone at EV for 2025 with pictures of all the graduates since 1957. I'll be doing a live broadcast before the parade at 9 a.m. and staying around after the parade to visit with other alumni. We're also interested in learning about other historical English Valleys items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson or Scott Romine or any board member to donate. I'd also like to have pictures of anything that anyone might have of anybody that we talk about. I'd be glad to show them in the future on broadcasts. See you next week.